Gear 5 is the quote-unquote pinnacle of everything that Luffy can do. But what does that really mean? How, in Luffy's mind, is Gear 5 the pinnacle? What does Gear 5 mean in relationship to his other gears? Gear 2, Gear 3, and Gear 4. What is the deal with Gear 5 that makes it so damn special, at least compared to those gears? You see, people, we are back in Gear 5 season. Manga Cats, we had it last year. Now we're coming back at it again for the anime. And the anime is going to be in full swing with the final stretch of Luffy versus Kaido. Episodes 1071 plus are going to be out of this world. Super looking forward to 1072. And now I have to tackle, once again, at least at a baseline, one of the most iconic transformations, undeniably, in anime history. Freedom at its finest. And ironically enough, in order to gain our Red Bull wings, in order to gain our wings of freedom, we have to start off with the Gorosei. What do the Gorosei say about Gear 5? Luffy's Devil Fruit Awakening. Simply put, he is actually the Zoan ability user of the human fruit mythical type, model Nika, possessing a body with the properties of rubber and fighting in whatever way he fancies, bringing smiles to the faces of the people. The warrior of liberation, also known as Nika, the sun god, the same person that Who's Who talked about. Awakening brings his rubbery body greater physical strength and freedom. It is said that in all the world, there is no power more ridiculous. So as a result of achieving the awakening, as a result of achieving Nika status, yeah, Luffy has attained greater physical strength and has way more freedom. And in Luffy's mind, he has to kind of, at least for the time being, relate that to what he can do previously, his other gears. And let's start off with odd numbers. Gear 3. Gear 3, in relation to Gear 5, the biggest takeaway is that he doesn't need air to utilize what he needs to do so in the past. Admittedly, because episode 1071, now Toshi has Luffy blow into his arm to make that gigantic hand that manhandle Kaido. So I look like a dum-dum in some ways. However, you have to wait and see. Episodes 1072 plus will show that Luffy, for the most, at least they should, for the most part, indicate that Luffy does not need air to utilize Gear 3 shenanigans. 2 is that in the manga version, 1044, it felt like it was way more apparent that Luffy did not need air when he grabs Kaido, but it was off screen, so who knows? Maybe I'm lying. But I digress. There were clear signs of this happening throughout the entirety of the arc before we even get to Gear 5. So for example, in chapter 916 or episode 902, the biggest sign, the first sign of Luffy's Devil Fruit progress and growth was his sumo slap against Urashima. Not the big giant one, but the smaller sumo slap when he first clashes against Urashima. Cats who follow the channel know I've been talking about Urashima for a while. Well before we got into Gear 5, for a minute, because to me it was a key sign here that Luffy was getting better to the point where he didn't need to use air to actually expand his bone structure, once again first shown in that chapter, in that episode. And then there was a follow-up to that over 100 chapters later in chapter 1037 or episode 1064, where Luffy does his rock gatling versus Kaido's Kundali Dragon Swarm, but we didn't see this. Ow. We didn't see him bite into his thumbs and pump air into his bones like he normally would. And we even see after that clash, him do a follow-up kick, and that leg, that shin is expanded like it normally is in Gear 3, but we don't see him actually pump air into his bones. So the biggest takeaway here for the Gear 3 and Gear 5 comparison is that Luffy does not need air to utilize his Gear 3 bone expansions, which of course made his attack a lot more powerful. And this even applies to Gear 4. Now you get to the even numbers here. With Gear 4, he doesn't even need air for the muscle balloon. body expansion. One of the key lead-up signs to this was in chapter 1042 or episode 1069, where Luffy goes into Gear 4 Snake Man, and then without powering down, without having air release in his body and then taking in new air, he just straight up goes from Gear 4 Snake Man to Gear 4 Bowman, without the need of powering down. Luffy even grabs the smoke that's coming out of his body when Kaido hits him with the Thunder Bellow Bagua as he tries to maintain that form. Very funky stuff, but signs of the true nature of his Devil Fruit ability. Once again, Luffy getting progressively better with his abilities over the entirety of the Wano Country arc. And Luffy's Gear 4 Bowman and Tank Man defense now applies to Gear 5, because Gear 5 is the awakening. And because he is a Zoan, we know what that means when they awaken, because we see that with who? The impaled down Jailer Beast guards. Crocodile said way back when that as a result of them awakening, they gained greater physical strength and endurance. Luffy, like a Zoan, follows that same model. So Luffy, by default, has a much more physically tougher body than Gear 3, than Gear 2, and of course Gear 4. Physically, at a baseline, he's tougher than all those forms, which is already haunting of itself, because Gear 4, you needed what? Haki to maintain that form. But even without Haki, Luffy is tougher compared to his Gear 4 version. That's crazy. And of course, raw physical power is also upped as well compared to his Gear 4 Bowman version. Gear 4 Bowman in raw physical power is not as gnarly, is not as studly, is not as nasty, is not as over the top as Gear 5. Gear 5 is a scary beast, and that's at a baseline. Excluding him grabbing the ground and turning the ground to rubber, that's at a baseline. Luffy is a freak in Gear 5, and we're not even done yet, because there is one more gear we gotta tackle here, and that gear is Gear 2. Gear 2 is known predominantly for its ferocious speed. In order to achieve Gear 2, he has to accelerate the blood flow in a certain part of his body or his whole body to get faster speed. Thing here is this though, we know that in Gear 5 he has that funky beat. He has the drums of liberation, and that funky beat comes from where? Uh-oh, 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 the heart, baby, the heart. Even though a lot of times it's hard to gauge how fast something really truly is, at the bare minimum, it's a safe assumption that Luffy is at least just as fast, if not even faster, than what he is in Gear 2 at Gear 5, which is already one of the fastest things in the One Piece world. And we know, a bit of spoiler warning here, I suppose, in episode 1072, it's coming, and we saw it in 1045 in the manga, the stance. He had the same stance. Okay, spoiler is done. Now, compared to, let's say, Snake Man, it is a much harder thing to tackle, because Snake Man keeps on accelerating per bounce. So maybe Gear 5, in theory, is not as fast as Snake Man, because it's always getting faster and faster and faster, but for certain skills and move, he could be honestly just as fast, if not faster, compared to his Snake Man form. So, you can see now how so many of the prior restrictions Luffy had in his previous gears are gone. They're just blown away. Blow away! Freedom at its finest for the rubbery body of the Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. Luffy has so many options and combinations that previously he couldn't do because he was restricted. But now the gates of freedom are open, and it's a glorious sight to behold. And the craziest part is that this is just the tip of the iceberg for Luffy. If you take a submersible that's not named Titan and go under the water, you will see just how gargantuan, just how scary the true scope of Luffy's powers can be. Even currently in the manga, we're still only seeing a bit of that underlayer under the water of the iceberg. There's still so much more to do, without a damn doubt. Luffy's pinnacle is like in the video game, you finally get to the open world section and you can do whatever you want to do. That is Gear 5. And it is a marvelous, beautiful thing. And when it comes to the full Gear 5 Iceberg, another video, another day. Let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to, of course, like the video. Of course, subscribe to the channel. Double click on subscribe and join the notification squad by clicking on that bell. And I'm gonna catch you cats on the flip side.
See you. Bye-bye.